another song, and then Drew is going to speak. I'll come up and do the closing, and then you can play after I do the closing. So they're going to be getting their book signed.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
We're not selling the books. We're asking for pleasure, and to get a book, it's $35. Okay.
All righty. So.
We do a well. Hello. Oh. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming today to Forming the Future book signing for Reverend Francis's retirement. We have refreshments in the back. Please help yourself. There's coffee, tea, water, and things to snack on. Okay? And then Sharon and Leslie will be our cashiers today. There's Sharon waving her hand, and there's Leslie waving hers. She gave a wave. A wave. And so the information on the level of the pledges is on your table, so you can look at that. The way the schedule is going to go today is Jim Valley and Terry will be giving us music, a couple of songs. Then Reverend Francis is going to come up and do a reading from her book and talk about how she came about writing this book. Then we will have Jim give another song, and then Drew's going to come up and do the ask. But feel free to wander, get refreshments or whatever, and thank you for being here. Thank you.
Da, da, da. Into the wild blue yonder. Ba, ba, da. 1, 2, 3. Hello, Mom. Is it rolling, Bob? Are we on there? 1, 2. 1, 2, buckle your shoe. Is St. Francis here today? Oh. So, Francis, this is for you. These are 2 songs I'm thinking that you like. And one of them has been modified. The names have been changed to protect the innocent. You got me singing in the truck. It's gonna take a lot of luck to get back on the road where we both belong. I'm coming from the shadow, dark side of the moon. Daylight she break on soon. Sunlight shining bright on my face sends out a wish to the whole human race. Love ye one another. We are sisters, we are brothers. On this promised road, magical land. Taking years, too many tears, learning how to drop these fears. Help on high, we are coming home on time. Coming home, come on, Terry. can fly. Love in my heart could embrace this whole world. Now and then I find a friend who reflects a life within and points the way when I can't find my own. Coming from the shadow, dark side of the moon, daylight she breaks soon, sunlight shining bright on my face, sends out a wish to the whole human race. Love ye one another, we are sisters, we are brothers, on this promised road, magical land. Taking years, too many tears, to drop these fears, help on high, home on time, coming home, coming home on time, coming home, love ye one another, coming home, love ye one another, coming home, love ye one another, coming home on time. Coming home. On time, on time. So this is modified for our Francis. And I hope you enjoy it. And there's a sing-along part that if you felt like joining in, you could. No fee, no joining in fee. Just join in. We just want to thank you. Thank you, Francis, for brightening up our days. And to see your wonders all around throughout this starry space. When I am weak and I can't speak, I get down on my knees and I pray. Close my eyes, I hear a voice that says, "Lo, and I'm with you always, and I'm with you always, and I just want to thank you, Lord, for giving me this grace." I am weak and I can't speak. Get down on my knees and I pray. Close my eyes, I hear a voice that says, "Lo, and I'm with you always." Low is the way and high is the feeling. Low is the way and high is the feeling inside your flame now. I'm healing. Oh, what a joy to be in heaven. From here to kingdom come, to kingdom come. From here to kingdom come. Oh, Francis, we love you. Oh, what a joy. She is a joy. Oh, what a joy. And Mario, too. Oh, what a joy. From here to kingdom come. From here to kingdom, I'm with you. I'm with you. So I'm with you always. Oh, what a joy. Dear Francis. Oh, what a joy. From here to kingdom come. From here to kingdom come. Hallelujah.
Well, hello, everyone. It's really wonderful to see all of you. I'm seeing people I haven't seen in a couple of years. It's so sweet. So I'm going to be reflecting on this book, which happened quite a while ago, but it's all about community and my particular draw to community. I think in the book I say that when I was about 1 year old, my mother lost her first daughter, and she just was grief-stricken for many, many years. I didn't reconnect with her till I was about 8 years old. And so I found solace and friendship and love in the neighborhood. And so at the age of 3, I would venture out, and I met all the characters in the neighborhood and actually became a leader of children much older than myself. We decided one bright sunny day, or at least I decided, that we were going to jump into a construction zone. It was a big basement that was being built in South Bend, Indiana, so that was about 6 feet deep, and I persuaded all the neighborhood children to jump in. And so we all jumped, and then when we got down there, I looked, and there was this wall of dirt. And I thought, oh my gosh, how are we going to get out? And there were 2 trepidatious kids that hadn't followed my direction. And I said, go tell your mother we're here. And fortunately, the mother didn't have to come because the bulldozer driver on the other end of the lot came down and lifted us out of the excavation pit. But I learned something about leadership at the age of 3, that not only do you have to care for your followers, you have to make sure not to get them in deep trouble, because they will follow you. So this book is a little bit about how I came to end up directing this project, which involved 20,000 citizens in the city of Austin, and reorganized the schools, and after which we passed a $210 million bond issue. And so I had been a teacher, a school principal, and program coordinator of a very large model cities program, $1 million budget, and then moved into what was called developmental programs, which is the creative department. Wouldn't you know, I'd be attracted to the creative department, which if you wanted to do anything with the public schools, you had to go to that department. I worked with the R&D people at the University of Texas and did many creative projects. But one day I was in the school cafeteria of the administration building, and my friend, who was an assistant superintendent, who had just experienced the new superintendent coming in from Columbus, Ohio, he said, the superintendent is looking for an idea. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, everybody tells him that nobody can pass a bond issue in this environment. Even all of his assistant superintendents have told him it's impossible. He said, you can find an idea. So I was kind of meditating and reflecting, and I ran across a little history of the school system after its first year. They gathered all the parents and all the teachers in Pease Park, which was a little park in West Austin. And I thought, well, that's the key. Let's gather parents and teachers together. So I came up with this idea of gathering 25 schools, their teachers, their principals, and their parents together at Austin High School. And the superintendent was invited, and he showed up, and 500 people came. And he said to me, where's the press? Well, I, of course, had no idea how many people would show up. But these were people that truly wanted to be involved in their schools and make changes and all of that. So that happened. We got, I gave them an appreciative inquiry process that they took back to their schools, surveyed their communities, and then they came back with recommendations for improvement. So in the meantime, this happened around the 1st of May. And then on the 31st, the 30th of May, was the famous Memorial Day flood in Austin, Texas. And my house was totally destroyed. It was unlivable. I had to move out of it into an apartment. In the meantime, in August after that, after that flood, I have to tell you this, what I did. I was so upset because the reason it flooded was the Mopac Highway had dumped water into a neighborhood creek, which is illegal in the state of Texas. And so I thought, I'm going to organize. And so I went out with a petition and went to every single house along the creek all the way from Johnson Creek to the to the Rio Grande River, and signed up people to join the Johnson Creek Neighborhood Restoration Group. And they paid $1 to join. And the next thing we did was organize a meeting with the city engineer. The city engineer was there, and so was kind of a local politician. And he said, well, what you need are drains, new drains. And so he said, we'll have a meeting with the city council, and we'll get those drains. So he organized. In the meantime, I asked the city engineer, what would be the permanent solution to this problem of flooding in our neighborhood? And he said, a bypass. And I said, how much would that cost? And he said, $5 million. And so we went to the city council meeting to talk about drains, supposedly, and we were standing out in the foyer with all the neighbors gathered in the foyer. And the little politician came out and he said, it's time to put on your badges. Come on in and we'll go for those drains. And I said to the neighbors that were gathered, I think we should go for the permanent solution. And they said, we do too. And we walked out of the city council meeting. And we started to work on getting a bypass. And that involved lobbying the planning commission, working in all the city council elections, getting their support for this which had to be a bond issue. We passed the bond issue, and 2 years after I left Austin, that bypass was built. The neighborhood will never flood again. So in August, after all of this happened, the superintendent invited me to his office, and he said, I got this project called Forming the Future, and he said, I'd like you to direct it. And he said, go down to personnel, find out what your salary increase would be. And he said, bring me, there's an office downstairs, you can have that. And he said, all I need, he said, I want to unify the community and pass a bond issue. Those were his instructions. And he just let me have at it. And so he said, you have 1 month before the principals come back and you make a speech on or you tell them what to do. So I sat in this office that I had acquired and really just reflected for a month about how to organize this project that would pass a bond issue. The school district was in desperate need of 13 new schools. All of the schools were in disrepair. And what I learned in going out into the community is they really wanted to change the curriculum. And I had interviewed the Dallas superintendent before I started this project. He said, whatever you do, don't mix buildings and curriculum. But I didn't feel that was the way to go. Intuitively, I knew the whole district had to be looked at. So I came up with this idea of, that was modeled after the May project, school community leadership teams in which every school was invited to organize their community, find out who the businesses were, because parents only represented 33% of the voters. So they needed to reach out to other people and persuade them of their needs for improvement. And that's what they did, and that involved they surveyed their communities, and they worked on that for about 4 months, and then they came back with recommendations for each school. In the meantime, I was organizing things at the district level, and I had come up with 6 committees. We went to the newspaper, got their endorsement. They printed an endorsement, and what followed were hundreds of resumes from community members that wanted to be a part of this project. And I would call them up and I'd say, what would you like to work on? And they'd say, well, magnet schools. I'd like to do magnet schools. So I said, okay, you're on the magnet school committee. If it was a committee that didn't exist, we created one. So we ended up, I started with 6 committees. We ended up with 34. And I recruited a community leader to be my counterpart for the community. And to figure out who to get, I went to the archives of the school district and went through this rickety old file cabinet, and someone's name kept surfacing and resurfacing, and that name was Willie Kasurik. And Willie Kasurik was famous in Austin for his appliance store, in which he said, you don't need money, you just need a little bit a month. And then he would say, where there's a Willie, there's a way. So he was a positive force in the community. So I asked him if he would be my chair. And he said, I'll have to ask my wife. He did, she approved, and I arranged a meeting with the superintendent for the formal ask. And he accepted, and things were never the same. He was just an incredible, invaluable community partner, and we worked every day together. Our task was then to organize leaders for every one of those committees. And so we recruited leadership. We went to the LBJ library and had a huge meeting. 1,000 people came. They all were directed to the committee of their choice. And the process began in January. And they worked for 4 months in small groups of 15 to 20, working to come up. We gave them research questions. It wasn't just, what do you think about this? They had to actually research best practices all over the country in the area of their concern. And they were staffed with staff members, teachers, principals, got to, only one. We didn't want to outnumber the community. And they made their recommendations. And then in the summer, an executive committee came together to produce a report to the school board, urging them to go to the go after bonds on my birthday, February 5th of the following year, and it was approved. But I guess the diversity of who participated was amazing. We had one committee that was called Politics and Research, and that committee's job was to determine when we could go out for a bond issue, when the time was right. And on that committee, I had the editor of the Austin Statesman newspaper, along with the head of the Brown Berets. So you can imagine, in the old days, when they did bond issues, they would just call together 100 friends of the school district, you know, people that thought the same. And this was a diverse representation of the entire city. And so with recommendations and a report, we went out with a bond issue, and it passed with 4-to-1 margins at a time when no bond issues were passing all over the country. So I just wanted to say that today I think communities are very fragmented. Our community in Tacoma is extremely fragmented. We just learned of the anger and upset of South Tacoma. The businesses are outraged because they will call in a theft and nothing is done. There's extreme amounts of crime and other things, and it seems to me that the local governments don't value the opinions and wisdom of their constituents. Very often you'll write a letter to the city council and not get a response back. And I call that spiritual democracy, and I write a lot about spiritual democracy in this book because 3 people had a huge impact on my life. One was Ernest Holmes. I read him when I was 12, and I learned the power of the mind, and when it's focused on an objective, how much can be accomplished. Another individual that influenced me was Paula Spencer Underwood. She was the last of her people who wrote her oral history for the Iroquois tribe. And I have a great-great-great-grandmother who abandoned her family to find her parents who had been removed on the Trail of Tears. And it's all documented in genealogy that she was not there in 1850 when the Trail of Tears was happening. She had gone to retrieve her parents. So what intrigued me most by Paula Spencer Underwood was her story. It's called a learning story that she wrote for children called Who Speaks for Wolf? And it's the story of a tribe that had to move to another location. And they got together as a group led by women, actually, because the women were the leaders of the tribe, and the children got to participate. It was a totally inclusive process. And they debated around a fire for days and days where they should move to. And finally, after much deliberation, they were able to choose a location. And so they moved there, and the first night they were there, the wolves came. And at first, they fed them and kept them at bay, but then they realized that they couldn't continue to feed them and have enough stores for the winter. And so they realized they were going to have to move again. And so the name of the learning story is Who Speaks for Wolf? They had omitted the natural environment, the animals that lived in, they had forgotten to include that perspective when they made the decision. So anyway, that was where I learned about inclusivity. And then Matthew Fox was a great mentor of mine. I studied with him for about 8 years. And what I got from him was that the awesome spiritual principles could be applied in community and towards social action, and in particular, towards creating justice. And so with these 3 mentors, I came up with Forming the Future. I discovered an incredible man. Let me find that. This whole notion of spiritual democracy comes from a man named Kettner, Frederick Kettner, who wrote a book in the 30s called Biosophy, which is about spiritual democracy. And so in the book, I quote from Václav Havel, who says, I really, truly believe democracy is being threatened in a serious, serious way. And I believe that we've got to go back to listening to people, to involving them in decision-making and using the principles of a democracy effectively. Václav Havel said, you two are we're merely approaching democracy. But you have one great advantage. You've been approaching democracy uninterruptedly for more than 200 years. I think the processes that are outlined in this book would work for almost any organization. You could use it to organize a better program for addressing homelessness. You could use it for addressing just about any social problem could be addressed. And the interesting thing is when you bring everybody in to the resolution of a problem, you get the best ideas. Because it's not just the opinion of one person or another person over here. When they interact and they come to an agreement, a consensus, it's a powerful solution. And I think these ideas, the spiritual principles, which are an intention, the superintendent basically had 2 intentions: unify the community and pass a bond issue. And then visioning, just sitting in a room. How many jobs do you ever get where you get to sit still for 30 days before you have to come up with something? But it yielded an incredible, I created a handbook for the principals to use in organizing their communities and how to do it. We gave them conflict resolution training because you certainly come into conflict when you're doing a project this large, and people are still not using necessarily spiritual principles, but they're in power mode. They want to acquire power. We needed 13 schools, and we had a character. One night I was in my office in the administration building, and I heard the voices of 2 men coming, and they walked into the office next door to me. They did not know I was present. And they said, how can we get Francis to cooperate? And so I'm listening to this, and they said, well, we think because of desegregation, there's going to be far less schools that are needed. So they had cut the facilities program in half. And how can we get this listened to? And so I talked to the chair of the Willie Kasurik, and he said, oh, well, let's give them full access to our attention. And so we held a meeting. The two guys presented their perspective on how things were going to get smaller, not larger. And they heard them for a couple of hours, but their presentation didn't succeed. Everybody, all 81 schools supported the notion that the school system was going to grow, and grow it did. It far surpassed the estimates. And this pair, basically, having been heard, didn't cause any more difficulty for me anyway. So that's a little bit about forming the future. I also address the whole notion of forming the future as a hero's journey, that we're all heroes of our own journey. And that includes those things that Campbell told us about, which is getting a call, crossing the threshold, encountering difficulties, resolving them, and then coming away from that experience with a gift. And then the cycle continues to repeat itself throughout your life. But you can also look at this as a way of looking at your own journey, not just, my journey, but your own, and how it plays forward. So let me see if there's anything else I want to share from this. I think I wanted to share. Should have marked it. Yeah, here it is. It's called Prayer is an Egg. Is an egg, like scrambled or poached. On Resurrection Day, God will say, what did you do with the strength and energy your food gave you on earth? How did you use your eyes? What did you make with your 5 senses while they were dimming and playing out? I gave you hands and feet and tools for preparing the ground for planting. Did you, in the health I gave, do the plowing? You will not be able to stand when you hear these questions. You will end up double and finally acknowledge the glory. God will say, lift your head and answer the questions. Your head will rise a little. Then slump again. Look at me. Tell me what you've done. You try, but you fall back flat as a snake. I want every detail, say. Eventually, you'll be able to get onto sitting position. Be plain and clear. I've given you such gifts. What did you do with them? Then you pray the prayer that is the essence of every ritual. God, I have no hope. I'm torn to shreds. You are my first and last and only refuge. Don't do daily prayers like a bird pecking, moving its head up and down. Prayer is an egg. Hatch out the total helplessness inside. And that was written by Rumi. So forming the future as a journey, mythos and revelation, is about hatching out the total helplessness inside and giving away the awesome gifts of God. Thank you. Thank you. I don't know whether you want to ask questions, but I'd entertain one if you had one. Okay.
Question?
Yeah. That's okay. Okay. We'll go.
This is an opportunity to ask Francis if you have any questions in regards to the book and to her reading today. If not, we'll go ahead, and our next feature is Jim Valley giving us a musical selection, and then we'll have Drew come up after that.
So this is a sing-along, and we like to feature Mario. Did you want to sing along with us, Mario? Yeah, you.
No, you go. You want me to sing?
I want you to sing with the choir.
We'll all sing then.
It's all right. It's all right. Feel good tonight. All right. It's all right. We feel. Come on, Mario. It's all right. It's all right. Feel good tonight. All right. It's all right. We feel good tonight. Come to me when you're feeling low down. Come to me when your world's spinning round. Come to me, you know who I am. I say, I'm your main man. Sing to me when the song's all gone. Run to me when you can't move on. Come to me, children, you know what I do. I give my love to you. Come on now. It's all right. It's all right. Feel good tonight. All right. It's all right. We feel good tonight. Feeling love, rising, shining. Living river feels so fine. Lift you up when you are low. Now oola, 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 such a place to go now. Ooh, chat, chat. Ooh, chat, chat. Ooh, chat, chat. Ooh. Come on, Terry, play that organ. Healing love, rise and shine. Living river, taste so fine. Lift you up when you are low. Now oola, 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 such a place to go. Now play to me with our heart and soul. Dance with me, you'll never grow old. Come to me, children, you know what I do. I give my love to you, to you. Give my love to you one time. It's all right, feel good tonight. All right, it's all right. We feel good tonight. All right, feel good tonight. All right, it's all right. We feel good tonight. Say, Lord, we feel good tonight. Oh, Lord, we feel good tonight. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. It's all right. Thank you, Mario. Great singing. It's just awesome. Thank you, Terry. Drew used to draw. Did you know Drew was a drawing person?
That's the thing, because it's drew a picture, but it's all past tense. All right, everybody, stretch your arms up wide. Take a deep breath. We would sit for a little bit and reach out and pat your neighbor on the back and say, "Good to see you." So I'm gonna keep this brief, but I have a couple of important things to say about Francis, and one of them is I came here at a time when I was pretty low and walked through those doors, and Francis opened her arms, and I fell right in. And I've been in this part of the community now for about 15 years, and it's been one of the biggest blessings in my life. And so why does it matter what we're doing today? Well, I'm just going to talk a little bit about Francis's involvement. We know we've heard a lot about her history in Texas, Austin, but she has a great history here. And this is a little bit of an abbreviated list, but she's been very active in all kinds of things, secondarily supporting things, supporting other things. But her biggest points of focus have been Sister Cities Council, serving on 2 Sister City committees, board president of the Chinese Reconciliation Project, organizer of the inaugural Tacoma Moon Festival, which was fabulous, co-organizer of the Dickens Festival, which has been a Dickens of a deal to do every single year, organizer and MC of the Sister Cities UN International Peace Day program at the Thea Foss Parks Peace Plaza. So she's been big on Sister Cities, big on art, big on spiritual community, big on involvement throughout this area. And if you know, her and Mario have been deeply rooted in this community. And that is important, to be involved in community. But I can also say is that she is sacrificed. When a spiritual leader decides they're going to take this path, they are not in it for the money. So what they do is they make kind of an implicit or explicit vow to say, I will not be driven by the almighty dollar. I will be driven by a higher power. And when you do that, oftentimes some of those worldly things fall away to the benefit of all those whom you sacrifice for. An acknowledgement of that sacrifice is our gift today. Why does that matter? Because it puts a value for us on understanding what that means to take that path. That is not an easy path. I've known many spiritual teachers, and many of them live at levels that are not extravagant. How do they do that? Through the dana, through the donation, through the love and the caring of the community and the people whom they serve. If you don't pay attention to that, you're ignoring a core tenet of offering your love in a way that, in this case, monetarily so, offers gratitude. It offers support. It offers recognition. It gives value to that. So as you give something today, know that that's what you're doing. It's for you as much as anyone. You're offering to live into a core spiritual tenet whenever you give. That spirit of generosity, that spirit of honoring people. And if you know Francis, and you know Star Wars, and you know Jedi Knights, they have something called a Jedi mind power. And Francis executes this beautifully. And if you've seen the original Star Wars, Obi-Wan Kenobi, who's a Jedi Knight, the stormtroopers approach, and they're going to take them over, and he says, these are not the droids you're looking for. And they say, these are not the droids we're looking for. You may go about your way. And they say, you may go about your way. Carry on, carry on. Well, Francis did that to me when I came in. You will start practitioner studies. I will start practitioner studies. You will go to ministerial school. I'm going to ministerial school. You always think it's your idea, but she was the one who planted the inception right there. So, but all that, a little bit of humor to say that that's for the greater good. And I would not be the man I am had I not been on that journey. And so I offer gratitude through my gift today of knowing that that book is another way of service. So what you're doing is you're realizing that at the end of your life, the only things that will ever matter, and I know this because I've worked in the hospitals and I've seen thousands of people dying, and they all said, it's how you love, it's how you live, and in this case, it's how you embody generosity. Those are the things that will stand out as a true legacy of your life. So let's make our gift today, and we honor you, Reverend Francis. Thank you.
And I want to say thank you again to everyone that is here. We're here to honor Reverend Francis, knowing that after over 22 years of service here at the Center for Spiritual Living-Tacoma. And so this is for her retirement and to acknowledge her generosity, her beauty, and her service that she's done to the community at Center for Spiritual Living, Tacoma, Dallas. She's been in Atlanta. She's been in Seattle. She's been around. But we want to say thank you. And I want to say thank you again to each person here. Reverend Francis will be signing your books. We're not selling the books. We're asking for pledges. So at 35 and above, you get a paperback. At 100, you get a hardback. Reverend Francis will be back here in the back signing your books. Leslie and Sharon, if you haven't already purchased or given your pledge, Sharon and Leslie will be handling the financial part. Sharon and Leslie, can you guys raise your hand? Thank you, thank you, thank you. And there's still refreshments back here. Please help yourself, and thank you again for coming.
And thank you to Mona for putting this on.
And Terry will provide us with music while we're just hanging out.